Ohio and Pennsylvania. That's early in the election,
Sure.
and election, and
Well,
it was
let's intro. Let's intro. Then we'll get into it.
okay.
What's
Hmm.
up, everybody? Our faithful few viewers. Welcome back to an episode of the Fake Philosophers. Once again, with us is me, Mike, and Eddie.
How you doing?
What's up, Eddie? So
You can zoom on in, Eddie.
we're coming off the election. Uh, Very polarizing election. Lots of opinions being thrown around. So we thought we're gonna throw our opinions around a little bit.
Why not? It's hot. It's hot, and the American people have spoken. It's
Hmm.
freaking resounding, and they're pissed off. They're tired of bullshit.
Yeah. So we'll start with that. Just
Yeah.
not in details, but the initial thoughts. So I obviously I've said it on here before and I said it in person. I was not I was more voting against Trump than voting for Kamala.
Mhm.
And I kind of thought, especially in the last week or so, there were a couple moments where I was like, okay, she's gonna lose.
Mm.
Um
Even her side knew that.
yeah, I was
You're
like,
not alone.
well
You're
we'll
not
talk about
alone.
that. It's interesting. Well, quick
Well,
tangent.
we're getting to all of it.
Yeah.
We're getting to all of it, ladies and
It is
gentlemen.
interesting. I was listening to a couple reports, and they've been kind of confirmed that, like, going into the election day, Kamala's people, like her staff, not like the Democrats in general, but her staff were like, "We got this, we got this, we got this," and a lot
Hmm.
of Trump staff was like, "Oh, I don't know, I don't
Hmm.
know," and then it was interesting to see how that turned out. But yeah, so
Hmm.
I kind of went into it thinking, okay, Kamala's not going to win.
Hmm.
I thought it was going to be kind of like 2016, where the Democrat wins the majority vote, the popular vote, and the Republican wins the college.
Electoral college.
So when the popular vote was coming in, I was like, "Oh shit, this is a resounding fuck you."
Hmm.
So that was my initial hypothesis, my prediction, and then my reaction to how it came out.
Hmm.
What about you?
My preface, well, again, I didn't like either candidate. I don't have skin in the game and everything. And now I don't know, maybe that's lazy, maybe that's ego driven. I don't know. I want my vote to count. And it didn't seem like, especially being in California,
Hmm.
you're going to swing Democrat one way or another. Uh,
Yeah.
so, that's a bit of a presumption, and especially in polarizing years. I was noticing a lot of red up front, but
Yeah.
okay, that happens. It's and what we're doing. So again, I'd like to think that I have an unbiased view because I didn't like either candidate, you know, and it was really interesting and something I've stated before. Just what I've learned is swing states you got to watch out for are Ohio and Pennsylvania early in.
Hmm.
Generally, you pick those two up early, it's smooth sailing the rest of the way because those are huge electoral swing
Is
states.
Ohio a swing state? I thought that was more of a red.
It's treated like a swing state,
Okay,
contested. You know what? We could look that up.
maybe.
So forgive me if I'm wrong, but generally
They're
those are the
good.
two states I look like. Those are the true two states
Sure.
I look at. But it was really interesting. Um, and then as the night goes on, by the time I came home, I'm home at about 10, and there's still no Pennsylvania. But it got to the point where, okay, if Kamala gets Pennsylvania, she still needs to pick up Wisconsin and Michigan, and she's not going to do that.
Yep.
So you hand it to somebody who's been previously president, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating, and Democrats seem to have forgotten that he only lost by a very slim margin. You
Hmm.
know, and there's a lot of things, a numerous amount of things that go into it. I think just the population was like, okay, this guy is divisive. We don't want a divisive president. We want people to calm down. We want everybody to be unified. And if it means that it's this guy's fault, let's get rid of this guy. Let's just have peace, make everybody happy. Everybody's good. And that's not what happened.
Yeah.
People are still pissed off. There's still protests. When did the abortion ban go into effect? 2022. Who's president? It wasn't Trump, you know? And there's like this fear
Well,
of
yeah.
women's
Okay.
rights. And are you kidding me? It's like, well, nothing's being upheld. So I think the American people, the working class, especially. An article just published today, Bernie Sanders himself saying, the Democratic Party is often is off in space because they've abandoned the American worker, and that's who spoke up. That's who spoke up.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. And we could circle back to that. I would say, because we're getting right into what we think happened. I would say so I was talking to a person close to me today, and he leans conservative, but he agreed with me. In 2016, Trump didn't win, Hillary Clinton lost. If that makes sense from a philosophical standpoint. In 2020, Biden didn't win, Trump lost.
Yeah.
And then now in 2024, Trump didn't win. The nation said "fuck you" to the Democrats. So it wasn't like they were like, "Yeah, go Trump, go Trump." It was more like "fuck the Democrat Party." Because I think, I mean, we can go into it. I just think that
go into it.
The Democrat Party has a problem with finding candidates. I think some of those, like the lower level candidates, are decent. Like Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania, I think he's really good. I actually liked Tim Walz. I liked him when they picked him as VP at first, but then going on and on, I was like, maybe he wasn't a good pick for VP, but I think as a governor, he's good. But at the presidential level, the last 3 cycles, every time I'm like, why are they doing this? Because yeah, there's primaries, but depending on the questions, the interviews and stuff, you can kind of push the primary in the way you want it to go. Sorry, I was turning my phone off. And so I think there's just a problem with the Democrats. A metaphor I've used before, when I was younger, I think I was in 7th grade, I was playing Pop Warner football, and there's a level in Pop Warner football where there was a coaching staff that always coached that level. So like your dad's coming up and everything didn't coach that level. And there's this guy, I'll say his name is John. I'm not going to use his full name. Was the head coach. And this guy was a shit coach. He had this idea that if you were like a returning player, for some reason, you started automatically. And then once you're deemed a starter, you're the starter for the year. So there, I still remember, this is an anecdote, but it happened. We were playing a game, and in Pop Warner football, at least when I played, every kid had to play 8 plays, right? That was the rule. You're in the team, you play at least 8 plays. I was second string on this too. The second string offense took the ball down the field, drove all the way down the field to like the 10-yard line. I forgot where it was. It was in the red zone though. After the 8 plays, he pulled the second string, first string went in, and turned the ball over. And I keep thinking about that with the Democrat Party. Hillary Clinton was a divisive figure. Even if you like her, I don't. Even if you like her, you have to acknowledge that not the majority, but a lot of the country doesn't like her. Why do you think she's a good candidate? Biden in 2020, I feel like he was just fucking shoehorned in there. And when COVID happened, I think they just kind of pushed Bernie aside, and he was like, fine. And like I said, I don't think Biden would have won unless Trump really just fucked COVID up. And so then now, Biden, I hate to admit I voted for Biden in 2020, but I'll say it, I begrudgingly voted for him. I think we had this conversation before.
Yes.
Begrudgingly voted for him because he said, I'm a one-term president, and I wanted to see the chaos of Trump end. So I voted for him. When it came election season this time, fucking Biden says, I'm running again. And I'm sure people like me were like, the fuck you are? That's not what you said. That's not why we voted for you. What the fuck? And of course, like both parties do, they protect their candidate. They protect their guy.
Yes, you have to. It looks really bad if you don't.
It does. And of course, you had a couple Democrats go rogue and run against him in the primary, which no one's going to vote for them. They're going to vote for the incumbent. And so it took all the way till that fucking debate to show that he cognitively is still there, but he's not there. He's aging. He's old. He still has the brain, but he's not going to be a good leader. So he drops out. So mistake 1, Biden fucked everyone on the Democrat side and the independents who voted for him, like me, when he decided to run again. So now there's already bitterness in that election. And instead of, so he drops out. And I was in support of that. I was in 100% support of that. Because I don't want to see another Trump presidency. Or I didn't want to see another Trump presidency. And so when he came out and said, I endorse Kamala Harris, I immediately was like, no. Why? She is one of those people who she doesn't like. I remember in the 2020 primaries, she was one of the ones I wanted to drop out immediately. It's not because she's black or a woman or any of that. She just wasn't a good candidate. So he immediately endorses her. And I was talking to someone else today who said, I think he felt he had to because it's the VP. I was like, yeah, but fuck, like you had so many good choices in 2020 and they shoehorned
Hmm.
Biden in. Have an open convention. Have them come forward and in good faith, not insulting each other. This is why I should do it. This is why I should do it. And even if it's among just the Democrat elite, then they vote. I don't know. Have an online poll. But
It's also getting too late for that, though. By the
yeah,
time,
and I get it. I get it.
he
But
got
like,
off the pot, and that's the dress down that, well, what I suspect now was the dress down from Obama. How could you do that, man? How could you, whew.
yeah, so you have that. I'll go on my rant and then you respond.
Uh-huh.
You have all this happening. So they picked Kamala. Which don't get me wrong, I get. If he comes out and says, I endorse Kamala Harris, and then other Democrats are like, but I want the job, I want the job. It looks like there's infighting, there's not a unified message. I get it, which is why that was strike two on Biden. He shouldn't have fucking endorsed Kamala right off the bat. They should have
Mm-hmm.
let it be a discussion. Anyway, so Kamala comes out. There's all this hoopla, all this fucking momentum. And at the point, I was like, oh, she might fucking win. Because there's all this momentum behind her at first. The Democratic convention, look, you don't have to like the Democrats to realize that that was a fucking party, the
Mm-hmm.
Democrat convention. And so I was like, oh shit, she's winding up. And then the actual campaigning starts. And I feel like, so Trump runs on emotion. I think you can disagree with me if you want. I feel like Trump runs on emotion, not actual policy and objective like metrics. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like she tried to do that to an extent, but you can't out emotion Trump.
Well, okay, so let me ask you, what metrics was she running on?
She wasn't running on metrics. That's my point.
Exactly.
What
She
was
has no track record.
Yeah, and I've had this conversation, and we could get into the details if you want. Looking at it objectively, forget the candidates, forget Trump and Harris,
Mm-hmm.
just Democrat versus Republican. There is an objective case to be made. If you look at all factors, all metrics, all the things with context, that the objective better choice would be the Democrat. Again, don't I'm not talking about Harris or Trump. There's Democrat versus Republican. There was an objective like argument to be made. And with what hair I have left, I was tearing it out at both the VP debate and the Kamala Trump debate. Like, granted, she won that debate because Trump's a moron, but she didn't win it because she was so brilliant. Like, I was getting so frustrated. Like, you have an objective argument to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I could be remembering wrong. There was a clip of a town hall where a woman said, like, times are tough, this and that, the economy's bad. How are you going to fix it? I think Kamala's response was, I don't know what economy you live in, but the economy's great. And it's like, bitch,
Ooh.
you just lost a voter.
Mm-hmm.
Because by most metrics, yes, the economy is good right now, but that doesn't account for price gouging and the inflation. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but she could have responded objectively, what's causing the price gouging? There is a reason for that, and it's not the president. It's like there was all these things she could have handled on top of making the argument against Trump, and she didn't. The
Mm-hmm.
one, the
There's no
one,
metrics. You're
yeah,
well, you're saying Trump has all this emotion, but there's no metrics on her part.
that's what I'm saying. He was acting off emotion, and I
Mm-hmm.
felt like she was trying to run this counter campaign of joy and blah 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 blah. To where like she said a few things where I was like, why isn't she running on that? Like the $50,000 tax deduction on new businesses.
Mm-hmm.
As someone like we're thinking about trying to open up new businesses, that was very appealing to me. Bring that shit up
Mm-hmm.
all the time. She mentioned she's the only candidate I've seen mention price gouging by corporations, which
Mm-hmm.
is the problem with the economy right now. Like I'm not trying to be one of those oh fucking corporations. Like I'm not one of those trying to people, but like that is the problem right now is price gouging. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't, and she brought that up, and I was thinking like dive into that. How are you going to do that? Because I'm a free
Mm-hmm.
market guy. I am a free market
Mm-hmm.
guy, but I
How?
want to know how are you going to do it?
How?
Because that would solve a problem, a really big
Mm-hmm.
problem. So how are you going to do it? I'm going to do it. She never dove into it, and it's like
Well, she didn't.
fuck.
There's no. It's sizzle, but no steak. It's
Yeah,
party, but there's nothing behind the party. And you know what? You said it all right there because most Americans aren't invited to that party. Working, you can't get by on one job. You got to have three jobs to afford rent and ends meet. That happens over and over and over. And you tell me you got a plan. I'm listening. You got my attention. Why? Because I don't like Trump. Blah blah blah. Okay,
yeah,
I haven't heard a damn thing that says you're going to fix this problem. Just that you will. That's
yep.
yeah. That's here's
And
your time to shine. And this. speaking for the Democratic Party, and I'm not a Democrat.
Neither am I.
have more conservative leanings anyway, but just their point, they've lost they don't connect to the American people. And Trump is speaking to those people. The Democratic Party doesn't even want to listen to themselves when they say, this isn't going to be as smooth as we think it is. They get ignored. No, we can't handle that. We can't even handle listening to how Trump is speaking to the middle class and wooing them to vote for him. That's just not possible. That's just, the economy is great if you're Rachel Maddow. Believe her. No, you're not paying more for gas. You're not paying more for rent. You're not paying more. You're safer, even though you're making eye contacts with junkies and people are getting stabbed, around where I live, and that's waiting for public transportation, trying to be green. But it's all good. We know best. And you know what? You're just racist if you don't think like we do. And we've been throwing around, and it's been thrown around and thrown around. Nobody gives a shit anymore. Nobody gives a shit. They're worried about their bills. They're worried about their family. They're worried about getting a job. And Trump spoke to that more so than Kamala Harris.
Which I agree with you. And the problem is Trump didn't really even fucking speak to it that well. Mm-hmm. But he still did it more.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's like, and that's the thing, like you can make these arguments. Like, yeah, by basic metrics, and I'm not saying that everybody has it well, but by basic metrics, GDP, unemployment, the stock market, on paper, the economy is good right now. So you can make that argument while simultaneously acknowledging the hardship. How are you going to fix the hardship? The price gouging. And I feel like there were times where she was about to do that and then just went to something else. Mm-hmm. And
she really didn't have any answers. That's why. She's fronting. She's fronting.
I think that's a fair point. I think it was a great concept. The price gouging. Well, I'm going to attack that. Cool. How? I would have accepted. We don't have a solid solution yet, but we understand that price gouging is a problem and we're working on it. It's a bullshit answer, but I would have accepted that outside of nothing.
That's still not an answer there. She was saying the same thing in her commercials. Nothing substantive. Yeah. Because you know what? The market is always right. You're always right with your dollars. You vote with your dollars. Money is policy. You're doing it every single day. So, if you're nervous that Trump's elected, withdraw your tax dollars from the everyday economy and go get a better deal somewhere else. Because there's those threats going around again. If people are going to leave the country and what have you, if you've got a better deal, go for it. And you know what? You might learn something about what we do have in this country.
Yeah, I think we can come back to going forward because I have thoughts on going forward as well. Mm-hmm. But even like I always feel like if something's not going right, you pivot, right? Mm-hmm. Not like pivot from an answer or anything, but like, okay, so this isn't going right in the campaign. Pivot, do something new. What's the old phrase? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. 3 bad candidates. Anyway, so you have Trump. Trump's going on all these fucking podcasts. And Kamala went on some podcasts too, to her credit, but like he's going on all these kind of like young male bro podcasts. Yeah, Andrew Schulz, Theo, I forgot his last name, Rogan, all these people. Mm-hmm. If I were her, I'd be like, what podcast is Trump going on? Reach out to those podcasts. I want to go on them next. Mm-hmm. And even if Trump comes out and says she's copying me, blah blah blah, I'd be like, yeah, I want the people you're reaching to also reach me. Mm-hmm. I want to speak to them too. And then I think it was one of the moments I was like, this bitch is going to lose. I hate to say this bitch, but Trump went on Rogan. And listen, I've watched a lot of these podcasts that he went on, and he sounds like a fucking idiot. If you have any intelligence, he sounds like an idiot, but he goes on them and he gets exposure. So he goes on Rogan. Fine. To me, he sounds like a moron, but he goes on Rogan. Rogan was going to have Kamala come on. And then Kamala said, okay, yeah, let's do it. You come to me and we do 1 hour. And Rogan was pretty much like, no. You come to me in my studio, and we go for as long as we go.
Just like Elon Musk did, just
Everyone.
like Mark Zuckerberg did.
That's the format. You come to him, and you talk until the conversation ends. Trump, for his credit, did like fucking 3 hours. Jesus.
Yeah, he's not a reporter either. This is not the press you're going to manipulate. It's not on your terms. You're not doing him a favor by giving him the story. You don't get it, Kamala. Yeah. Your press agent doesn't get it either.
Yeah. If anything, he's doing you a favor.
Uh-huh.
And so when I found out that that wasn't going to happen because of that, I was like, oh, she lost. I know that's a stupid like factor to think that that's why she's going to lose, but when she that happened, I was like, okay, if that's the way she's playing the game,
Hmm.
she's going to
The old
lose.
school way. Yeah, she's playing it the old school way.
Mhm.
Like I'm the politician. I'm a I was indirectly an elected official. You voted for the team, but really you're voting for the president, and the vice president just, is kind of ornamental, so to speak, and is supposed to learn the job as president. And what did Biden teach that she learned? That wasn't clear, and there was always some concern that if he drops dead, she's number two and she's taking over the country. Is she ready? And now you want to elect her.
Yeah. Mhm.
There are other candidates. What gave me the ooh, in terms of Democratic candidates that were potential that could take on Trump, when Michelle Obama hit my ears, I was like, oh, that'd be interesting. And what does it say that I have more recognition of Michelle Obama and her nutrition campaign as first lady than I do of the damn vice president? You know,
That's a fair
her
point. Yeah.
She was actually out there. So if you want that wholesomeness, if you wanted something, and you know what? And that brought something else up. Trump doesn't really need to run for president. He's got enough money, so
Well, we can
it
get into
probably
that. Yeah.
we could get to that. And Michelle Obama, she would have put up a better fight than Kamala Harris. But no, we're going straight down the line. We're going to tell you, yeah, he's getting too old. We kind of knew that already. So yeah, you're going to vote for Kamala at the last minute. You know why? Because she's not Trump. She's not Trump. And you're going to believe that you're doing great financially. Your rent's not going up. Prices aren't going up. And they are going up. Biden's had 4 years to correct it, hasn't corrected it, but trust us. Kamala's going to make a difference. She's going to fix it.
That was a point. That was a point that I heard too being made by I forgot what I was listening to. That this idea, because listen, like I said, you can make the objective case that the economy is good under Biden, but people are still struggling, right? All those
Mm-hmm.
things you brought up, rent going up, you can still address that, but say the economy is good, but those things are happening simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that she refused to do, and I understand why, but it was a mistake, is separate herself from Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest, the VP doesn't really do shit anyway. I get it. But still, like, I think a turning point, I didn't watch the interview, but I watched a snippet, was she went on The View a month or two back. I forgot how long back it was. And they asked her, um, is there anything that you would have done differently than Biden during his presidency? And she was like, can't think of anything.
Mm.
And I guess they were like, you can't think of anything. Nothing. Nothing.
Wow.
And even if she genuinely
Ouch.
thought that Biden was the best president in the world, find something.
Mm-hmm.
Make something up that you would have done different.
Well, she did. Well, there was open borders, and all of a sudden, midway, you know what? Shelter in Mexico, shelter at home. Do not come to the United States. Trump did the same thing. That everybody got their way, right? We have kind of a quasi open border policy, and now you've got the vice president kind of standing up saying what the previous administration said. She could have taken a stand on that.
Yeah.
She could have taken a stand on, you know what? You have the right to protest. You have the right to freedom of speech. You do not have the right to go onto college campuses and segregate yourselves and prevent students of other religions, of other beliefs, from attending class. You do not have that right.
Mhm.
We do not represent you as the Democratic Party. You do not have the right to go into traffic and stop ambulances and parents from picking up their kids and people from going to work because you have a political agenda. We as the Democratic Party do not support that. We support working class.
You
That
would that
what
that would have you
you
would have
speak out
won
like that.
you would have won
That message
over
wins.
tons of people. Yeah.
That
The
that message wins.
100%.
Woman, man, transgender. You get up, you know the issues, you have a plan. This was a layup. This was a Trump, for all the pomp and circumstances. You're right. He was the hold your nose and vote. It was hold your nose and vote in 2016 with Hillary too.
Hmm.
You need a solid candidate, not political things, not an echo chamber, which
I agree.
everyone seems to be sitting in.
And
You
and
know,
even to that point, like the immigration thing, when they said, "Is there anything that you would have done differently?" she could have still kind of been nice to Biden and been like, listen, we had this border bill this past year that Trump torpedoed. But yeah, if I was president, I would have acted on that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of you're separating yourself from Biden without fucking under like shooting him in the foot. You could have said something about the Afghanistan withdrawal. You could have made something up. Even
Yeah.
I kind of make this joke when I talk to other bartenders that if somebody, when I was bartending still, and someone said on the menu, what's good or what's bad? Even I think our menu at my spot is all good. But as a bartender, to gain credibility, I would say, you know what? I would point to a sandwich, the beef dip. I don't know. The beef dip's not my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Some people order it, but it's not my favorite. But this is really good. Because even if the beef dip is still good and you think it's good, that person now finds you credible. You're admitting that something's not good. So all she had to say was like one small difference, something that
Mm-hmm.
she would do differently. And maybe even tell Biden ahead of time, like, hey, brother, I'm going to throw you under the bus a little bit, but it's to gain kind of credibility since you have really low approval rating right now.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows he's not going to be like shell shocked by it. Like that, I think was part of it was that she was still kind of, a lot of the Republicans were treating her as the incumbent.
Mm-hmm.
And she was saying she was running as like a new candidate, but she really was running as the incumbent because she wasn't separating herself from
Who else do
Biden.
they have? Who else? Yeah, who else do they have? She's
Yeah.
in that position, and if you turn on the television, what's her past record? Look at San Francisco. There's plenty of footage. Do you want San Francisco in your neighborhood? You want the success of San Francisco in your neighborhood. This was a layup. And there has to
It
be
was
some arrogance on the part of the and there is
100%.
obviously.
I'm interrupting you. It was not a layup. It was a slam dunk with a trampoline.
Yeah.
It should have been. Should have been so fucking easy.
Uh-huh.
But go on. I interrupted you.
Well, either candidate, when you look at their past record and you go to Trump and it's like, okay, you've got military, he still had top secret documents in a bathroom that was not secure on his property. He was still convicted in New York. And all that. What else? I mean, there's a laundry list of things that he's not done right. I mean, you had the Marine General Mattis, and the whole point of an elected official, you don't know something, you hire somebody, you bring somebody into the cabinet, and you listen to them. And he went with his gut. He brings this brilliant strategist, tested, approved, military loves him, and then he goes and quits. And then you have the CNO, Admiral McRaven, retired, Navy SEAL, just tired of it too. Was president, you can have my commission. 2 top dogs resigning,
General John Kelly,
yeah.
Mark Milley, yeah.
And at the end of all that, that's okay. But then where do the voters go? It's arrogance on the top of both parties. You get where are these stellar candidates? And it's out of fear. It's out of pandering.
Yep.
But then again, if you've got an entire base that says no, it's Trump all the way. This is who we're voting for. You can throw 5 people at us. No, Trump was robbed. Trump this, Trump that, and you got to kind of you're in the middle of a flood. You're on a raft and you just got to wait for it to go, or else there's going to be consequences with your office.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's not Kamala. So who you got? Who you got, Democrats?
I think they had good candidates, or potential candidates. They just, Biden had to endorse the VP and they ran with her. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you bring up a lot of good points. So like, I remember hearing, I don't know, CNN, something I was listening to, that they were saying the whole, like, he's a threat to democracy wasn't landing with people. Mm-hmm. Okay, so pivot. Yeah. So he has all these convicted. I actually agreed with her that she never used a lot of like the indictments in her arguments. Because in my head, it's like, okay, people leaning towards him are going to take that poorly. Mm-hmm. So I was fine with that. But yeah, like, use all the context of this. So a lot of the Republican argument was, are you better off now or are you better off in 2019? Mm-hmm. And obviously, then it was better. It wasn't until the last week or so that you heard Obama during his speeches saying that good economy was inherited from me. Mm-hmm. That argument could have been used early on. That was one of those objective metrics that you could have used early on. Like, the reason why Trump had a good economy is because he inherited it. And that's not me, some shill for the Democrats saying that. You could look that up in charts.
Mhm.
Um, it's like they could have made that argument earlier.
And
They
you're
haven't.
going Trump emotional. It's if
No,
you're not
yeah,
bringing up a metric like that, you're running on that same emotion too, and you
that's
have
my
nothing.
point. Yeah.
You don't even have shit. There's another field where Trump supersedes Kamala. Trump actually has presidential experience, and we know what to expect. I hope there's some learning. I really do, on behalf of our country. I really hope that some lessons have been learned of what to do and what not to do. And I think they have politically, I hope militarily as well. You hold on to your people, you treat them well, and you listen to them. You don't treat them
Yes.
like employees, you treat them like respected advisors who have been there and done that. He's
Yeah.
got a daunting task. Okay, you're in the White House. Now what? You're staring down the barrel of a recession. Okay, handle it, Mr. President. That's why we put you there. We're not interested. DEI is dying. We're not interested, despite the fact that we're not educated, we can find our way to the voting polls. The fact that we're not educated, we know the difference between biological man and a biological woman. And we know
Oh,
that
you're going off on the tangents now.
part of women's rights, there's a concern about women's rights being violated. Excuse me, but if you get into a ring with a biological man and get the crap beat out of you, or you get into a volleyball game with a biological man and suffer injury because of that, are you going to be transgender, or do you just not care about women? It's
Well,
ridiculous.
think you're
And
going
those
off
arguments don't put money in your pocket. They don't
well,
make the price of
okay.
gas go down.
Okay, thank you. You kind of said what I was about to say. I was going to say the transgender arguments to me are very minimal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're conversations to be had, don't get me wrong. But to me, whichever side you're on, to me, it's like that's like a very small sliver of the pie of what we need to talk about.
Mm-hmm. That
Um,
party, that nobody's invited to that party, a very small, I mean, talk about an elite. That's a very small segment of the population. The same population that was at the Democratic Party having this so-called party.
yeah.
You
And I
know,
want to address something you said, because there was something that came up earlier in a conversation I had with somebody. I feel like I said somebody 30 times just then.
okay,
Um,
some
but no,
anonymous person.
but the educated thing, because there is like studies that show that more educated people tend to be Democrat or left leaning. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying intelligence, I'm saying educated. So I do think that there is a almost, I don't want to say arrogance, but like an aura on the Democrat side of I'm educated, listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a thing like, because I'm educated, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'm educated, I feel like I'm intelligent. But if I talk to somebody who gets something wrong or is incorrect or whatever, I don't say, hey, fuckwad,
Mm-hmm.
listen to me and just do what I say.
Mm-hmm.
What
And
I do,
that's what liberals do. You
I
know,
wouldn't say all liberals, but definitely Democrat elites, 100%. And
Very
that's
much
what,
so. And
yeah,
Whoopi Goldberg all of a sudden is changing her tune, even though she's like, oh, now that Trump's been elected, we don't call people names and blah blah. She's been calling people transphobic, racist, homophobic, everything you could
well,
think
yeah,
of if they disagree with her.
for decades, yeah.
Yeah. And
But
it's
so
like, oh, we're not going to do that anymore. We're finally going to be
But
nice.
I think that's part of it, because like I said, I'm repeating myself. There were metrics and objective, like pragmatic arguments you could made. It's a balance. Alongside, there is an emotional argument to be made. We talked about, I think, last episode that people don't connect too well with metrics. They want the emotional response. But there's a
Mhm.
balance. There's a balance to where there's a way to inform people on the information they need to know without being condescending,
Mhm.
without saying, just listen to me and do what I say, I'm right. You can say, here's why I'm right. Here are some facts. Read them over yourself. Let me know if you have any questions. Like, there's a way you can go about it. And yeah, I will say there were times where it felt like Kamala was just like, yeah, that's Trump. You're not going to vote for Trump. You're going to vote for me because this is
Mhm.
what I say. And it really, it's just the Democrats are bad at this.
Well, they're pandering. They're pandering. Like what I said about protesters and everything. I mean, think about the implications of that. The Democratic Party support you. And what does that mean? Well, you're not going to vote for the Democratic Party. Are you going to vote Republican? You've already said that they're racist. So we're your only game in town. You can marginalize and you can call out bad behavior. The trouble is the Democratic Party has lost its way. It's gone so far left that it's left the country.
I don't,
And the polls prove that Trump grew in places where he lost. He even gained more approval. He gained more votes, even though he lost some areas.
I,
This was a complete shit the bed moment for the Democratic Party.
Oh,
They
I
no
agree with that.
longer represent America.
I would disagree that they're so far left. I would disagree with that. I just think they're arrogant and cocky. But
Mhm.
I did see a clip. It was from Joe Rogan's show. I think I don't quote me. I think it was the day of the election before the results started coming in. And I forgot. I don't know who he was talking. One of my employees was listening to it, and I was listening to it. They played a clip, and maybe if I find it, I'll link to it or just send it to you. They played a clip though of Bill Clinton in the '90s, and I was a fucking child. I don't remember this, but was there a rapper or a singer called Sister Soldier or something? I think it
I
was
don't
Sister.
remember.
I think it was
Or
Sister
Cisco
Soldier.
or Cisco.
It wasn't. It wasn't.
I
It
don't
wasn't Cisco. It was a female, and I forgot exactly what the quote was, but I guess she was saying something like "white people suck" or I don't know what she's fucking said.
know. Hmm.
So Bill Clinton came out and he said something. He's like, "Listen," he's like, I support Sister Soldier, if that's her name. I forgot. I support Sister Soldier in her free speech and her right to rap and sing whatever she wants to sing. But I had to completely disagree with her with what she's again, I forgot, with what she said about white people hurting black people. Or it
Hmm.
was something like that. He's like, with that said, I went to, again, I'm going to find the clip so I can verify, but
Hmm. Of
I went
course.
to a country club X amount of time ago. And apparently, that country club, I found out later, did not have any black members. And I was criticized rightly for it.
Hmm.
And I should have been more sensitive to that. And I'm not going back there till they change their ways. And he made the
Hmm.
point of, I can be sensitive to racism and prejudice, and I should have been at the same time, not approving of this hateful message this artist said. And that goes
Hmm.
back to your point about the protest. I encourage protest. I am here for the right of protest, but I am not going to support that violence, that getting in the way of traffic. We're not going to support that. I
That could have been
encourage,
said, and it was
yeah.
never. It was another missed opportunity.
And the thing is, I don't even think those protesters would have gotten mad about it.
Hmm.
Those people are
No,
liberal.
they were far gone.
Yeah.
You know, if
So like,
if you're being racist and anti-Semitic yourself, you are that far gone. You are part of the problem.
yeah,
You know,
100%.
and it's
And,
arguable that the View themselves, they elected Trump. All that name calling, all the we know best, all all that nagging. They got Trump elected.
yeah,
They're the problem.
and
That's the
so
hilarious thing. The people who are scared, well, you're the problem because you're myopic. You're not, you may be part of the working class, but your politics aren't, and that's why Trump got elected.
So I'll say this. I think the that obviously there's going to be the crazy MAGA supporters who are going to
Mhm.
vote for Trump no matter what the argument is, right?
Yep.
Then I think there's Republicans like Mitch. He's still in Cambodia. That's why he couldn't make it tonight.
Hmm.
Republicans like Mitch and like my father, to be honest, he was honest about it. To my knowledge, Mitch doesn't like Trump, but he's voting Republican down the ticket.
Hmm.
There's people like that on the Democrat side too. No matter what, they're voting down the ticket, their party. And then there are the kind of not never Trump Republicans, but like the Republicans that don't like Trump, and they're like, oh, I don't know. And then independents, who are kind of they don't like Trump, but they don't know what to do. Those people should have been very easy to grab.
Hmm.
But I think because of the assumption, and I'm gonna sound like one of these like Fox News hosts, but the assumption that they're just gonna get the black vote. They're just gonna get the
Hmm.
Mexican vote. The
Hmm.
assumption of that without actually going out. Like, look, Trump's a fucking moron every time he's in public talking. He went to a black barbershop in New York. Again, what he said was stupid, but he was there. He does these appearances. He looks retarded, but he's there. Whereas it did seem like she just assumed she was going to get the black vote. She assumed she was going to get these votes. And
Hmm.
so I think there was the MAGA hardcores, the Republican loyalists who might not like him, but they're going to vote for him. And that last batch of voters that I think is what overwhelmed the popular vote were people who just were like, well, fuck you guys, because you think I'm going to vote for you. You're not giving us a reason why. So we're
Hmm.
just going to vote for Trump.
Well,
Fuck you.
don't forget that in the Latino community, Trump overperforms
Yeah.
resoundingly,
Mhm.
resoundingly. So it's like, oh, you're racist. Well, we're Latin. No, we go for the best candidate. You give us a good candidate, we'll vote for him. And America has proven that time and time again. In the last time it was out of fear. It's like, okay, this Trump, he's just causing problems. We don't want that. Let's just appease. Let's settle down. Has it gotten better? No, it hasn't. It has not gotten better. It has not gotten better financially, domestically, socially. Everybody is still unhappy. It's getting worse. And it's like, okay, you know what? Everybody just kind of got the clue. These people are going to riot anyway. It doesn't matter who's president. These people are going to be unhappy. Cool.
Yeah,
Roger that.
So my closing statement on why Trump won, I guess, and then we'll go into how we think the next 4 years are going to go. I do think Trump and Vance, I feel like they did everything fucking wrong. And I will say this, to attack Trump for a moment, I do believe that Trump is graded on a curve.
Mm-hmm.
That the standard is different when you're criticizing him or when you're criticizing his opponent. There is a double standard. If just imagine, look at, we ransacked fucking Harris the last half hour, however long we've been doing this.
Mm-hmm.
If Harris did any of the shit he did during this campaign, she would have been fucking done immediately.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that incredible?
He gets away with it. He gets away with it. It's just, I think Bill Maher said it. It's a superpower. It's a superpower.
Slap in the face to be against a felon, somebody who had top secret documents, sexual harassment claims.
Pretended to suck a dick on stage last weekend.
You've got military people, top military retired people serving in his cabinet, serving under him, who he won't listen to, and losing to that guy. Losing to somebody like that. That is freaking incredible.
Yes.
2 out of 2 times.
Like I said, there was a good argument to be made against him. And look I'm going to be, like I said, there is a double standard. If she did, last weekend, he pretended to suck a dick on stage. I forgot the context of it, but he was like he was doing that shit on stage.
Well, it's the honesty too.
I heard an argument for that too, that he seems genuine even though he's not. But so he's done all this outrageous shit. This should have been, like we said, a layup, a slam dunk. It should have been so easy to beat him. And I do think, and I might piss some people off, I do think there is an issue in America with critical thinking and media literacy and that side of it. Because, like I said, there's objective reasons not to vote for Trump. Objective reasons, not personal or bias. But people don't generally vote on that. And so I think there is an issue with critical thinking. I think critical thinking should be a core subject in schools, starting in middle school at the very latest. Not to be clear, not what to think, but how to think. If that makes sense.
Exactly. And that's not what's occurring in universities right now. You're taught.
It is if you seek it out. It is if you seek it out.
You have to seek it out. Just show up to your history class. No, you're being told what to think. Your political science, you're being told what to think. It's interesting because I had close to, that's where I get so left. They left the country is from a political science professor. And, he was obviously libertarian and what have you. Speaking for, on that, we even had Martin Sheen come to campus and what have you, speaking on Proposition 187 back in the day. That was on the ballot and passed not to give community services like emergency room and what have you to illegal aliens. Or that wasn't Prop 187. That was, I forgot. It was some prop. Interestingly enough, that passed, yet nobody enforced it. So, I'll be honest. I didn't vote. I want a good candidate. But if stuff like that happens, where if I as the voter go and I vote and I say, I want this policy, and that runs the majority, and then you're saying you're not going to enforce it, well, my vote does not count.
Yeah.
My vote
I'd agree with that, yeah.
Does not count.
I'd agree with that.
I'm going to get chided for not voting. BS. It's a cartel system,
No, I'd agree with that. I agree with that.
It's ridiculous.
So yeah, unless you have something else to say, we could talk about the next 4 years.
I don't know about the 4 years. The next 4 years, it's not over. This wackiness is not over.
Well, of course.
In the least. Because, you could go back. Jon Stewart just did a minute on this. And it's like, okay, the person, we need somebody who's solid, somebody with experience to take on Trump 2016. We got Hillary. Boom, she's out of there. Okay. The next president, They need to be ethnically diverse. They need to check all these boxes and what have you. It's Biden. Okay. And there's an insurrection. Okay. And then you have political commentators, arguably people like fake philosophers, saying, you know what, Trump will never, ever, ever step foot in Washington again. Ever, 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 after what happened on January 6th. And look what happens. So this nuttiness, it's not over. It's the beginning of another beginning, and it's more of the same thing. We're going to get more of the same thing in certain directions. And you know what? If the price of eggs go down, the price of gas goes down, rent goes down, if he can make good at all that, you're looking at another 4 years after these. You're looking at another 8 years.
Well, he can't run again.
He can't?
I thought you can only do 2 terms, right?
He can't do 2 terms consecutively. Yeah. He could go. It's not complete.
Is that true? Hold on.
Because we had somebody do that in the 80s. That's the last time something like this happened. You know, where somebody stepped down and was voted out and then got voted back in because there were term limits. So yeah, he could be around for 8 years.
Hold on, I'm fact checking that. Just
Please do.
Not to prove you wrong or anything. I'm just
prove me
curious.
wrong. That's what we're here for. I don't mind that, you know. And you're saying let's go if we want to get into it. That's what we're here for. We are here to get into it. You know, we are here to delve deep. I'm
scanning. I'm not reading in detail because I'm not going to sit here and just bore.
Well, go ahead. Read it in detail.
Well, no, it doesn't say
want to know.
It doesn't say consecutive. I think it's just 2 terms.
2 terms. What I believe is, okay, you serve 2 terms, you can step down, and then you can serve again and serve another 2 terms. It's not 2 terms over the course of somebody's life. It's 2 terms. It's just 2 terms, you know. But you're reading the law as 2 terms over the course of one person's life. I'm reading the law as 2 terms consecutively. Ask ChatGPT. Get Copilot. They can answer quicker than Siri. You know.
Hold on. So President Bill Clinton suggested, this is just fast forward because I did find in page consecutive. And blah blah blah. 22nd Amendment should be altered to limit presidents to 2 consecutive terms, but then allow non-consecutive terms. So I think right now it is just 2 terms in general. But Bill Clinton at one point suggested that they should change it to where you could run non-consecutive another term. So I think it is just 2 terms. Either way. So I think this. What I was getting at is, so among a lot of kind of fearing left-wing liberals, they're kind of worried because there was the rhetoric that Trump said that he's going to go after the quote enemy within because they're more of a danger than Russia or whatever. So a lot of left-leaning people are kind of afraid about that. Now I think, or I'm hoping that he kind of used that rhetoric during the election and isn't going to act on it. That's my instinct, but I'm kind of just hope. At the same time, I'm kind of like he won on that rhetoric. So it is kind of alarming, but at the same time, my instinct says he's not going to actually act on it. Like he's not going to weaponize the DOJ to go after his political opponents. My instinct tells me no. So it looks like the House hasn't been confirmed yet, but it looks like the Senate and the House are going to be going red this year.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing response? You know, all of this hoopla that happened in 2020 and we're going to we got to control the House and all this Democratic celebrating. And now we get to see Trump's tax records. How did that benefit everybody? It's all hype and it's all fluff anyway.
Yeah. So I will say this. I think it disappoints me because I do think that the Supreme Court's going to be extremely unbalanced because in this next term, I think Clarence and I've got this
is going to retire. Yeah,
they're going to retire, and so it's going to be a very super majority court for a long time. Yeah, a long time. So that's kind of I would prefer a more balanced court. So that kind of disappoints me, but fine. So that's the reality we live in. And with that, though, I saw a joke online, like, I wonder if he's going to admit that the Project 2025 was actually the plan all along. I don't know, but I do kind of worry because, like, don't get me wrong, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be good. But I do kind of worry if he takes this next 2 years with the majority in the Senate and the House what sort of damage he can do. If it was any other Republican, I wouldn't really worry about it, but I do kind of worry about what he's going to do.
Well, what kind of damage happened when there was, what happened last in 2020? Didn't the Dems have a blue? It was a blue White House and a blue House as well, or a blue Senate?
I think in 2020, it might have been
What
all
just
blue.
happened? Let's look at it.
I think in 2020, it might have. I know the Senate went blue, and then in 2022, that's right. In the 2022, the House went red,
Mm-hmm.
but the Senate stayed blue. But
So for 2 years it was all blue, and what happened?
I mean, good bills were passed objectively. But the thing is, here I don't want to do a false equivalency.
Uh-huh.
There's no Trump equivalent in the Democrat Party. The Democrats have their fucking issues. We've been over them, but there's no Trump equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
And the Democrats in the House and Senate are not so devoted, or we're not so devoted to Biden. You can like do any interviews with like AOC or any one of these little more progressive ones who
Mm-hmm.
disagreed with Biden publicly on a lot of stuff. The Republicans don't really have that. It's very sycophantic to where it's like what Trump says, Trump gets.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, that's their base too. Who got elected? Who elected it? Yeah, you're going to toe the line.
I get it.
Because that party, that's what the people voted for. You got to follow what the people say.
But my point is, on the Democrat side, there was disagreement within the party those 2 years.
Oh, there'll be disagreement. There's
On the Republican side,
yeah.
the last time there was disagreement, Liz Cheney got run out of office.
Mm.
That's my point. The Republicans right now, I believe a lot of them don't even like Trump, but they toe the line just to keep their jobs, which is
Very
sad.
much so. I'm gonna interrupt.
Sure.
2020, Trump took 232 of the electoral college vote. Biden took 306.
Mhm.
Senate 50-50.
And that's
Nobody
right.
had the
And
majority.
Kamala was the
50-50.
tying vote. That's right. Okay.
House in 2020, Republicans 213, Democrats 222. So Democrats ran the House. Senate was balanced. And what happened? What got pushed through? Well, okay, so regardless of what got in, here I'm looking at the Yahoo 2024 election, Donald Trump 295, Kamala Harris 226. So yeah, it's very simple what's going to happen more the next year. We know what a Trump presidency looks like. He's got experience and he's going to be Trump. That's charming and scary at the same time. It's more scary because you're running the world's largest military, and that being said, I don't know that I trust Kamala Harris's, perspective on military affairs either and what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen to Ukraine? Let's keep it over there. I hope he's influenced by the daily briefings he's going to get. He hasn't, there's my son said he might be calling Putin just to talk about Ukraine before, as president-elect. And it's like, okay, get the briefings first, know why what's happening is
He's not going to read the briefings. He's not going to read the briefings.
But yeah, but then again, who did? Dick Cheney, as vice president, and then we went to Iraq.
So we're kind of going into that. So this is kind of a Democrat talking point, but I think it's a legitimate one.
Mm-hmm.
In Trump's first presidency, being new to it, so he got all these respected people, and from what the reports say, I think Trump even says it himself, ton of pushback from these generals, from these advisors, like, no, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that. Whereas now, he's made it kind of clear he's going to pick people who aren't going to do that. And that's kind of, like I said, I think we're going to... That
is nervous, yeah, I see where you're going.
And we're going to I think we're going to survive, I mean, knock on wood, but that's kind of where my anxiety comes from when it comes to Trump back in office, because, like, don't get me wrong, all the Republicans, they bitched about Obama, but they survived Obama. The liberals bitched about Bush, we survived Bush. I get it. But they had advisors that pushed back, and they listened to their advisors. Trump this time has made it kind of clear he's going to bring people on who are just going to be sycophantic and not say no to him. And that, even if it was...
That is kind of nervous. That is kind of nervous.
Even if it was Obama or Bush or Biden, anyone, if you bring in advisors that aren't going to push back on you, like, look, the two of us, we have egos, right?
Hmm.
But I like being fact checked. I like
Hmm.
to know that I got something wrong. I want people to challenge my ideas so that I know, even at the very least, I know my idea is correct because they challenged me and I pushed back and I was right. Is that
Hmm.
an ego thing to say? Yes. But at least I know in that argument, I won the argument. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like that's a good
Yeah.
thing. And Trump's personality, even people who like him say, yeah, loyalty is his number one thing. So he's gonna pick people who are just loyal to him above all else. And
Hmm. That's scary.
that does scare me, especially with his impulses.
Hmm. Yeah, that is scary.
And so that's where, like, with all the rhetoric he used in the last 6 months, rhetoric that would have disqualified anyone else,
Hmm.
it does kind of it is kind of alarming to me. And I hate to sound like some little snowflake shill for liberals, but it is alarming.
Well, you're pointing out something that's absolutely correct and is
Yeah.
happening in front of everyone. Yeah, there is kind of this mystique and this goal that he's like a Dave Chappelle for politics. He's
Yeah.
not cancelable. You can't cancel the guy. He's uncancelable. But then again, Dave Chappelle speaks to you and me.
Hmm.
His how he opens his act talking to Jim Carrey, who played Man on the Moon, who played Andy Kaufman and everything.
Hmm.
That was brilliant. That's the way a lot of people think. And you can sit in the audience and go, I don't like Dave Chappelle, even though I paid $300 for this seat, and sit in the audience and be on Netflix. And you're still paid Dave Chappelle
Hmm.
to do that.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but yeah, there is that mystique, and that mystique's carrying. I agree with you. That is tremendously scary when you have
Yeah.
just hire people who just agree with you and don't offer any critical thinking. Then you're
Yeah.
no better than those students at the college campus. You're
Yeah.
no better than them at
And
all.
regarding his previous comments on his thoughts about NATO, the UN, how he does weirdly, he always compliments Putin, Xi, Kim Jong Un, right? Kim Jong
Mhm.
Un, Il. I was anyway, but
And
so he praises these people that we universally aren't supposed to like, while criticizing NATO allies. And now he's going to hire people who aren't going to push back on his ideas, with the House on his side, with the Senate on his side. Even if I was a Republican, like that is all kind of alarming.
that is very alarming now that you bring it up.
Yeah, and that's what, and again, like I think it's a reasonable concern. At the same time, like I've heard pundits on even MSNBC, CNN, all of them saying like, look, he won the race, he's the president. Let's just try to make the best of it. And hopefully, Trump will somehow kind of resist the urge to be himself. I don't
Well,
know how to.
well, either way,
Uh,
we don't. You can hope all you want. You don't have a choice at this point. The
yeah.
die is cast.
Mhm.
It's interesting. I was watching the knee jerk reaction. You can't help but watch some of the counterpoint to it. MSNBC going, and they started bringing up all these dictators from the past: Mussolini, Hitler, of course. And they get to Maduro, modern day dictators like Maduro in Venezuela, and then equating that to Trump. But interestingly enough, well, didn't Peng I'm sorry, the guy for life in China, him.
She?
Gee, yeah. Didn't he
She, yeah.
just appoint himself what I said? President for life,
I
premier for
think
life?
so, yeah.
Yeah, and Putin, what was that election like? They're not mentioning these other people
Yeah.
that they're in bed with, and that you just mentioned. It is very, very distressing and very odd that you're equating somebody here, and let's not forget good old Hamas, who voted for them, and to give you, and there's another problem that's going to be held. We kind of know where that goes. So if you're pro-Israel, you're feeling really good right now with the Trump election. But honestly, out of three documentaries, this is my point of view. Frontline on PBS, they give it to you straight. They give it to you unflinching.
I'm
I
fine with PBS, yeah.
watched, yeah, I watched a special on why the wall failed, and then on Netanyahu, and then events up to now. What I've garnered watching about 4 hours worth of material is that there's no turning back from the violence now, and they just want to beat on each other. To answer my own question, from my learning, Hamas doesn't have any opponents because when they were elected, they rounded up all of the Fatah movement and murdered them. There's nobody who ran against them, and there will not be people who ran against them. So it's interesting how we narrow the dictatorship for one argument on MSNBC, the most liberal, the most progressive, arguably, of any major network, but we don't, because if you bring up something that might not paint Palestine, that movement, in anything other than a favorable light, then you're not towing your own line. So there's a lot of that going on. And you know what? This is the Trump perspective. Quite frankly, if I think the same thing would have happened if Kamala would have been elected, if Harris would have been elected. But then again, it's interesting because you've got to march across those aisles. You've got a glad hand. You've got to shake hands to get things done. So, okay, let's say she did get elected, but you got a red House and a red Senate. There's got to be work something done. That conversation doesn't need to happen. There's no compromise. There's no working. Who made this possible? The American people. The American people said this is a good idea. The people have spoken with that one vote.
Yep.
So you can be scared all you want, but this is what the American public wants.
Yeah, and that's what
I think scary, call it whatever you want.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people, unlike Trump and his supporters in 2020, that's what a lot of people, even critics of Trump, have said. Like, listen, we don't like this, but this is what it is. This is what it is, and we have to live with it. I've always laughed when people say people said that Bush was going to be the Hitler, Obama was going to be Hitler.
Now you're crying wolf.
But what I will say, though, to be fair, the parallels of dictators to Trump and his rhetoric, you can make an objective argument about. We don't have to go into it, but you can make an argument about. I'm hopeful. I'm hoping that, things are okay. And, but the vote happened. This is what people want. And, for better or for worse, that's what they're going to get.
We get it for the next 4 years until the next election. And then we'll know by next election, in another 2 years, whether American people think this is a good idea or not. And you're going to see more of it. But right now, the American people are absolutely tired of the direction this country is headed. They got more bills than ever. And yes, it is the economy, stupid. It is the economy. And if you've got answers, now's the time to share it, Ms. President-to-be, of what you're going to make, what's going to happen. And granted, I don't see Trump pulling out, and who did pull out graphs in the past? Ross Perot, Al Gore. Yeah, all those exciting people that history remembers. And they get nothing. They get nothing for it.
And listen, I've said this before that, and this is, I guess, kind of an extreme view in America, that I think voting should be a privilege. I don't think it should be a right. I've talked about that before. Excuse me. But it is sad that running an objective, fact-based campaign is like a failure upon arrival. And that's what's kind of sad, is like there were facts to be made, or I'm sorry, facts that could have been made into a point that failed to. But we're going a little longer than I wanted to. I'm gonna go out on a funny thing I read on Instagram. So someone said regarding the 22nd Amendment, they said something like, Trump in the next 4 years should revoke the 22nd Amendment and run for a third term in 2028. And a comment under it was like, cool, go for it. Someone call Obama. And the idea of an Obama versus Trump campaign actually kind of made me laugh, because I think the debate would be entertaining as fuck. Anyway.
Yeah, it would be cool. Yeah, it's clashing like that. And we don't have that. We don't have that.
I will say this.
It's the fault of both parties. Well, no, the Republican Party, you've got that constituency. Trump even said, if I lose this, I'm done. I'm tired of this. and he's got money. He can be done with it. He could have been done a
Oh
long
shit.
time. That's amazing. Um,
I will say
but
this because you addressed that earlier and I forgot to bring it up. I do think, and this is just my opinion, that because there is that argument. I have all the money in the world. I don't need to run again. Why am I running again?
Mhm,
I do think because if you remember the campaign in 2020, like he doesn't. I truly believe right now that Trump does not want to be president.
mhm,
I think he ran again because those all those investigations into him started before he announced his run for president.
mhm,
They were boosted after that because they're like, oh, we need to get this shit going. But all those investigations started before he ran for president.
mhm.
I think he knew about the investigations, obviously. And so I think he ran for president again because getting into this is, I will say, and I'm going to sound like a left wing shill, but I'm going to say it. This is the most disappointing part is that as we've talked about, you and I, Trump, like, listen, I know you're not guilty until a jury has deemed you guilty,
Mhm.
but all these cases, it's pretty clear, like, that they're against, like, the evidence is against him,
Mhm.
that he did dirty shit, and he should be held to account. And so a lot of people are thinking the reason why he ran is because now, if he gets into office, at least all the federal investigations, he could just scrap completely
Mhm.
and face no consequence. And that is just, to me, very un-American.
Well, that's a theory too, and it's plausible as well. You can take that with a degree of plausible, but he doesn't. He can lawyer up and get lighter charges and what have you. I don't know. I'm not making excuses,
No, no, of course, yeah.
but here's my point. That's okay. If you're gonna lessen my bills, if you can have all these cases, you can be a felon and all that. If you're going to improve my life as an American citizen, where I can be a one income family and have safe kids, that's what okay. You committed your crime, you're president now. That's what the American people essentially said. Is that the
Yeah,
best decision? It's not a pass. That's what the American people prioritize. And I can understand that. Yeah, I can understand
yeah.
that. I'm not excusing it. I don't, yeah, put a better
No, I get
candidate
it.
in there for
I
God's
I
sake.
get what you mean, and that goes back to what we said that like there could have been a better case for the Democrat, and I get all that. Just it does as I've seen a lot of people in my personal life, so it's anecdotal, get away with a lot of shit,
Mm-hmm,
like bad shit, and it's just like fuck, this person deserves to be held to account.
mm-hmm.
And the fact that he did do these things, and is potentially who knows what's going to happen with it? Maybe the DOJ will just shelf it until he's out of office in 4 years. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that he did these things, it's pretty clear he's guilty of them, and he can just get back into office and forgive himself. It is kind of frustrating.
That is,
Um,
yeah, well, this keeps happening too. We had an American citizen murdered in an embassy. Saudi Arabia
yeah,
was implicit toward it, and
yeah,
yet, okay, we're going to give you some money and make you some deals. And will this this
100%.
murder go? This murder thing goes away. That happens all the time at high levels. It's not known, and this is just what we know about it.
No, of
Trump
course.
puts everything in everybody's face. That way, you can see about it. But there's shenanigans always going behind the scenes.
No, of course. And I'm not saying that there's not. It's just another thing where it's like this is frustrating.
Mhm.
And because I mean, we're not going to go into those cases. I'd imagine.
How much of it is a witch hunt too? Because they just don't like Trump.
I don't believe that.
Mhm.
I will say that. A lot of people say Trump's been so mistreated by everyone. I've been saying we're going out on this for a while, but I do need to go after this. A lot of people say Trump's been so mistreated, so mistreated. They're just going after him, witch hunt, witch hunt, witch hunt. And it's like, well, compare the behavior and the character to previous presidents.
Mhm.
No other president has behaved like this. No other
Very
president has had a
true.
past like this. New inputs offer new outputs.
Mhm.
So to say that he's just a victim, no one's treated, it's like, well, is he or is he a
Well, he
corrupt?
also generated this scrutiny himself.
That's what
Oh
I'm saying.
yes, 100%.
Is it just that he's being treated unfairly because no one likes him, or is the individual himself a corrupt individual who's been doing this? I mean, you talk about business deals. There's tons of like you could look into his past 90s, 2000s where he's been to court dozens of times for
Hmm.
misdealings in his businesses. This is not a new thing. To say it's a new political witch hunt is kind of ignoring the man himself.
Hmm.
And granted, that's a whole other topic. We're talking about the election. Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, so my final thought, then your final thought shortly. My final thought is I'm cautiously optimistic that maybe kind of like last time he said a lot of crazy shit in 2016, got elected and didn't act on a lot of it.
Mhm.
I'm kind of hoping that the crazy rhetoric that he has been spewing was just crazy rhetoric and he tempers himself while he's going into office.
Mhm.
That's my hope. 'Cause I know even, Kamala apparently called him this morning to concede and congratulate him.
Yeah,
But
that's how it's done. Good on Kamala.
yeah,
That's
but
how it's done,
even though
class.
even though Trump didn't do it before,
Yeah,
she did it. Apparently,
that's leadership.
yeah, apparently Biden called him. A
That's
lot of
leadership.
a lot of the networks have been saying he's the president. We should respect that. So hopefully he gets a message and tempers himself, and all the fears that we talked about are not realized. That's my final thought.
Mhm.
Yours.
Well, my final thought is that he's the president of the United States, and I obey the orders of those appointed over me, and he is the commander in chief. And that's nervous. I don't want to be neither me myself nor my family, but into be a pawn in a situation uh, that we don't need to be in just because of politics. But then again, there's a lot of things popping off in the world. Um, what's most interesting is the fact that the American people have spoken so resoundingly and so one-sided.
Oh
This
yeah.
can't be ignored. This is not a tied Senate anymore. You know,
Hmm.
this is not a House majority. It's all red.
Oh, the Dems got a
And
whooping.
people, the Democratic Party, and they've been talking to themselves. I like to play politics. That's why I'm saying Democrat, Democrat, Democrat. Because again, you get a good candidate in here who can stand up, who's got a pair of balls, whether they do physically or not, that can stand up, that can address the issues instead of provide fluff and other topics. You're going to see some changes. I don't care Republican, I don't care Democrat. You
Agreed.
can take that cult of Trump down in a heartbeat, when you have a solid candidate who represents themselves, brings those facts and brings that same level of panache and brigadacio that Trump does. So yeah,
Agreed.
to me, both parties, it's a slam dunk. Everybody voted resoundingly. Most of them, I would wager to say, held their nose and voted.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. All right. On that
All right.
note, good conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We'll
Welcome to
have
the
another.
next 4 years.
Yeah, we'll have another one soon. I'm sure we'll have plenty soon regarding this topic. But yeah,
Indeed, indeed.
good conversation. Everyone, have a good night and see you next time.
Thank you from the fake philosophers.
Recording stopped. Stop recording. There we go.